Oh, you brought the colored man again? I thought you'd have given up. You're quite tough.
I hope you don't expect to eat any food today. I have nothing to waste on you.
There's an exception. If you could do the monkey dance, we can change our minds about feeding you and maybe even get you a banana. All three of them burst into laughter. I got angry. Hi, my name's Alex, and I'm from Cameroon, but moved to Canada at the age of 2, and I've lived here ever since. I met Ariel during college, when we were still only young adults. We started as acquaintances, often discussing our studies. Gradually, these talks turned into friendship. As our friendship grew, so did my feelings for her. It wasn't sudden, it was a slow realization that Ariel was more than just a friend. There came a point when I couldn't ignore my feelings anymore. Telling her how I felt was nerve-wracking. I didn't want to risk our friendship, but I eventually gathered the courage to confess. Ariel's reaction was a mix of surprise and happiness, and I felt a wave of relief wash over me as she told me she felt the same. We both began dating, and dare I say, I discovered even more peculiar things about Ariel. Our relationship continued even after we finished college. By then, I was 24 and she was 23. We both got good jobs and were doing well for ourselves. I introduced her to my parents as my girlfriend, and they were pleased to meet her.
Alex has never brought any girl home to us. I'm so glad to meet you. You're so beautiful.
Surprisingly, my sisters who didn't like to be close to white people after some bad experiences with a few, liked Ariel too. I was happy to see her smiling with them. It made my love for her to grow even more. I wanted to propose to her, but I decided to wait until I'd had enough money before doing so. Luckily, the next year, the manager at the company where I worked gave me a promotion, and that meant an increase in pay. I was elated. 3 months later, I decided that I was ready to get married to Ariel. I hadn't met her parents yet, and she'd also not talked about them before. I decided to wait until after the proposal before asking to meet them. It didn't take long before I finally proposed to her. Ariel was so happy that she bursted into tears. I nearly cried too. I put the ring on her after the proposal and felt myself take a huge step. A few weeks after the proposal, I asked to meet her parents. Ariel didn't disagree. In fact, she was quite pissed that I'd taken so long to ask. I was nervous as the day of meeting them began to draw close. Eventually, the day came, and Ariel and I went together. Unfortunately for me, her parents were the complete opposite of what I expected. Both were clear racists. Ariel's parents greeted us with forced politeness that barely concealed their underlying discomfort.
So do you work or do you feed from my daughter's pockets? I know that how you all black men are.
I felt uncomfortable by the question. I'd never received anything from Ariel. I never asked, and she never even tried to give. I wasn't complaining. I was fine with being the giver. I was about to speak, but Ariel beat me to it.
We share the bills, Mom. He has a job.
I was shocked. Ariel had never shared anything with me. I was about to speak again when her father butt in. I've heard black people don't use cologne. Judging by your smell, I'm sure you don't too. How do you think you can marry our daughter? Again, before I could respond, her mom cleared her throat and stood up, Ariel following after her immediately. I remained seated in the living room with her dad, too scared to say anything because of the deady glare he was giving me. Ariel's mother had prepared a quick meal and set the table. She called on me and her husband to the table. I saw Ariel already seated beside her mother.
I hope you know how to eat that. It's not the usual black and dirty food that you're used to.
I was offended by her words. How could she insult black food? I'm sorry, ma'am. Please don't speak about black food that way. I'm fine if you insult me, but please don't insult my culture.
Oh, you have a culture? I thought all you do is to have black skin and look dirty.
I turned to Ariel, expecting her to at least say something, but she didn't. Instead, she laughed, somehow finding what her mother said to be funny. Throughout the evening, I remained composed. Outwardly. Though inwardly, I was boiling and felt disappointed. After dinner, both Ariel's father and mother continued taunting me, especially saying annoying things about my skin color. Ariel wasn't any better. She would either laugh or be silent. Leaving their home that night, I couldn't shake off the unease that had settled within me. Ariel visited me the next day and acted like nothing happened. I'd expected an apology or something from her, but got nothing. In fact, she'd visited me only because she wanted to ask for money. From then on, I noticed how Ariel began to demand money from me. She wouldn't go a week without taking money from me at least thrice. I was having to take out of my savings to satisfy her wants. We never spoke about her family again. She didn't even bring up conversations on how we should have our wedding. It felt as though she was fine with us being just engaged. Despite what her parents had done, I wanted to mend things with them. So, I asked to see them again. Ariel agreed. Unfortunately, they were unapologetic about their actions. "Oh, you brought the colored man again? I thought you'd have given up. You're quite tough."
I hope you don't expect to eat any food today. I have nothing to waste on you.
"There's an exception. If you could do the monkey dance, we can change our minds about feeding you and maybe even get you a banana." All three of them burst into laughter. I got angry and lashed out at them. "Excuse me? I'm your daughter's fiance, for crying out loud. I'm also human. Just because I have black skin doesn't mean you have the right to speak to me like this." I'd thought they'd apologize or maybe stop their unfair words, but what I didn't expect was a slap from her father. "How dare you, a low-life black man, come into my house to yell at my family? Who gave you that authority? Have you gone crazy?"
Alex, these are my parents. How can you be so disrespectful to them? I've been nothing but respectful to yours.
I was even more shocked by Ariel defending her parents. She was present when they were saying all those degrading words to me. She never defended me. And now, she was mad at me for giving her parents a taste of their own medicine. I couldn't take it anymore. I was going to leave, but I decided to give them a piece of my mind one more time. "You heard them, Ariel. You listened to them disrespect me and my culture. You saw your dad slap me, and yet you defend them? You all are the same. I regret even thinking you were different, Ariel." Well, I'd honestly thought I could just walk away after that, but her dad wasn't going to let that happen. The man pulled me back and threw me on the floor. He sat on top of me and began punching and slapping me. Ariel and her mom watched how he beat me up mercilessly. When he was done, I was thrown out of their house. Fortunately for me, one of their neighbors helped me to the hospital. You'd have thought it ended there, and we called off the engagement. Unfortunately, Ariel refused to let that happen. 2 weeks later, she was at my office again, asking for money. I refused to give it to her. She tried all she could, but I refused. Angrily, she slapped me before storming out of my office. The next day, I got visitors right as I was leaving my house. I was trying to record a video of myself. So, while my friend stood away opposite us, Ariel and her parents showed up. I was beaten up badly for refusing to give their daughter the money she asked for. Apparently, she wanted to change her car and needed money. Afterward, they took my phone and transferred all the $30,000 I had as my savings. I kept begging and crying, but they didn't listen until they'd taken all my money and left me in bruises. Unknown to them, I had a small recording mic on, and my friend recorded everything that happened. As he took me to a hospital, he posted the video to expose Ariel and her parents. I had no idea about it until the next day, where he showed me the amount of engagement the post already had. And thousands of people had viewed it, and thousands had commented, all against Ariel and her father. I needed to get justice for what they did to me. I also wanted to get my money back. So, once I was able to sit up properly, I made a video to explain what had transpired between us, starting from the first time I met them. Again, it blew up. People were against Ariel and her parents for being racists. Some called her father an evil man for beating me up, and the family were called thieves for taking my money forcefully. Hashtags began flying, everyone demanding for my money to be returned with an apology and more money as a better compensation. It didn't take long before Ariel called me.
Take down that video, Alex. You're destroying our lives. What did my parents do that no one else hasn't done before?
And that I got to know that Ariel and her parents were getting all sorts of punishment from people everywhere they went. People who recognized them would sometimes throw eggs at them, as well as other disgusting things. But that was even little compared to what her family did to me. I'm never taking it down. You watched your parents talk down on me, beat me up, and even take my money. You'll have to apologize publicly to make me stop. She never did. Instead, she and her dad broke into my house 2 nights later to try stealing my phone so they could take down the video. I caught them, but I didn't wake up while they were still in my room. Once they took my phone and left my room, I grabbed my stunt gun from my wardrobe and went after them. I teased Ariel's father, causing him to fall down. Ariel was shocked to see me with a gun. "Get on your knees now!" Out of fear, she went on her knees. Her father was still writhing in pains on the floor.
Forgive us, please. Don't shoot. We're going to leave and never disturb you again. Please forgive us.
"Yes, please. If you let us go, I swear to you, we'll never bother you again." "Shut up, both of you." "Forgiveness? Never. I'll never forgive you both or let either of you go." I knew I needed to tie them down before calling the police, so I gave Ariel a punch, knocking her out. I quickly fetched a rope and tied her and her father together. After that, I took a picture of them with their masks still covering half of their faces. Then I removed the masks and took another picture, calling the cops right after. When they came, Ariel and her father were arrested and taken away. I posted the pictures online, and the hatred for the family increased even more. In court, I got my money back and even $10,000 extra, which was all Ariel and her family had as their savings. Both she and her dad were jailed for their crimes. They were to each spend 15 years there. Her mother, trying to burn down my house 2 weeks later while I wasn't home, accidentally trapped herself inside and burnt together with the house. Ariel and her father were absolutely broken and disappointed when they heard the news. People online were kind enough to get me a new and better house. While Ariel and her dad suffered in jail, I found myself a better white lady 2 years later, kind and very much unlike Ariel. I found peace and forgot all about Ariel. My fiance and I are expecting twins, and I'll make sure to send Ariel and her dad a picture of our family. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying, "I subscribed," and we will try our best to reply to your comment. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to confront her. She tried to deny it at first, but when I yelled at her, she was forced to start talking. She burst into tears and went on her knees.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Joe. Forgive me, please. It wasn't intentional.
Of course, I was touched by her tears. I couldn't bear to see her crying, but I also needed to know who she cheated on me with and why she did it. When I asked her, she only cried more, her body trembling uncontrollably. "Tell me, who's it?"
It's your brother.
It felt like my world stopped for a moment. I couldn't believe my ears. How could Bob be responsible for my wife's pregnancy? I grew up with a selfish brother, a brother who never praised me, but never failed to criticize every little mistake I make, and even take advantage of them. My name is Joe, and I have an elder brother, Bob. Bob was born just 2 years before me, but he boasted with and took advantage of the age gap, like it was his life goal to do so. We went to the same school, and I hated every bit of it. I didn't like the fact that I had to swallow Bob's stupid behaviors at school. He would often come to me with his friends, strangling me and pushing me to the floor roughly in pretense of being playful with me. Bob was just too rough. I couldn't say if he was intentionally extra with me, but I never enjoyed it. Once, I was eating in the school's cafeteria, and he suddenly walked up to me and kicked the table, making my glass of milk fall and pour on the table and my thighs. I was so angry, but I couldn't fight him. We were at school, and it would be embarrassing to fight with my elder brother there. So, I kept mute and simply left the cafeteria, ignoring his loud, mocking laughter. When we got home and I confronted him, he blew up. "Are you crazy? You're so ungrateful. I'm 2 years older than you, yet I play around with you like we're age mates and all you do is complain. You're so immature." I was so annoyed because he blew everything out of proportion. I simply wanted him to reduce how rough he was with me, but he was taking it differently. When I tried to explain, he slapped me. I was shocked. "The next time you're disrespectful to me, it will be more than a slap. You're so foolish and ungrateful." When my parents returned, I reported the case to them. But when Bob was summoned, B began crying. "I just wanted to be nice to him. No one talks to him at school. I and my friends play with him so he's not left out. How's that bad? Even though we're older than him, we don't mind playing around with him. How does that make us bad?" I couldn't believe my ears. I had friends at school. In fact, most of my friends stopped being close to me out of our class because they were afraid of getting beaten up by my brother and his friends. Now, how could I explain that my brother was lying when they were already hugging and petting him
Joe, apologize to your brother, love. Don't be so mad at him. He's just looking out for you, son.
I used to be rough like that with my brothers too. It's just how boys joke around. Don't be mad at your brother, okay? Did I have any choice? No. I couldn't be seen as a weakling before my parents. I forced myself to take his silly jokes until I finally graduated high school. I'd grown up to be very handsome and manly, but Bob was 2 times better. He got a girlfriend the first year he resumed college. At the time, I was still at home. Whenever my parents were out to work, Bob would bring in different girls to our house. I would try to advise him against doing that, but he never listened. How dare you tell me what to do? I'm 2 years older than you. You have no right to dictate how I live my life to me. I learned to shut up quickly. One day, a girl came visiting. All 3 of us were in the living room, watching TV. I didn't say a word or do anything except watching the TV. Shockingly, we heard the sound of my mom's car, and we all froze. My parents had gone out in my mom's car, and they'd returned. As if planned, Bob quickly got off the couch with the girl, and they rushed to me. He pushed her on me and stood in front of us, speaking to me like I committed an offense. And when my parents came in to meet the sight, I saw how their faces fell. They seemed to misunderstand what was happening, just as Bob wanted. You're bringing girls home now, Joe? I'm so disappointed in you. At that moment, seeing my mom's face crushed me. She was even more disappointed.
I feel so embarrassed.
Mom, Bob's lying. I didn't bring her home. I don't even know her. I swear to you, Mom. Believe me, please. Are you calling me a liar? You both were sleeping on the couch and I told you up to get dressed properly. What have I done wrong this time? After my mom left, I felt so bad. I quickly stood up and ran to my room where I didn't hesitate to cry as much as possible. Later on, I explained to my parents, and they realized that Bob had lied. However, I begged them not to talk about it to him, and they didn't. In his 3rd year in college, Bob began exhibiting even worse behaviors. He stopped returning home daily and only came on Saturdays. When my parents asked him, he lied that he was living with his friends. It was good for me because I didn't have to face his silly behaviors anymore. Soon, he added more. He would smoke at home whenever my parents were out and call me a weakling whenever I refused to join him. Once, our parents caught him smoking and drinking in the living room. I'd expected them to lash at him or something, but they didn't. They only asked him to be careful and eat healthy food. I was quite surprised, but I let it slide. He was old enough. Years later, we're finally grown men, and I'm married. My brother had gotten nearly completely out of control. He dropped out of college in his last year, left home to wherever. He suddenly came to my house one day. According to him, he was ready to turn a new leaf. I was impressed by how different he sounded, so I offered to help him. One time, about 2 weeks after, I had a fight with Bob. He'd come to visit me, yet he was trying to be all bossy, and that was annoying me. I tried to calmly ask him to stop, but he got mad. What? Are you telling me how to behave? I'm 2 years older than you, so I can do whatever I want. There he went with the age gap thing again. I couldn't take it anymore. Until when are you going to keep mentioning this? You're 2 years older than me, yes. Now act like it. We kept going back and forth until Bob left my house with pure anger. When my wife returned home from work, we also got into a small fight. I'd gone to bed that night with a hurt heart. After that one night when my wife didn't pass the night with me due to our fight, things took a strangely different turn. My wife, even after we settled our issue, would return home very late in the night, against her usual time. My brother and I hadn't settled our fight, but he would often come over to my house, have little conversations with me while giving me silly smirks. About 3 months later, my wife suddenly announced her pregnancy. I frowned. How was she pregnant when we hadn't had sex in 3 months? I tried to push it aside, but it kept bothering me. I faked happiness when she gave me the news, but I knew the pregnancy wasn't mine. She cheated on me. I managed to hold it in until her 6th month of being pregnant. I couldn't take it anymore. I had to confront her. She tried to deny it at first, but when I yelled at her, she was forced to start talking. She burst into tears and went on her knees.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Joe. Forgive me, please. It wasn't intentional.
Of course, I was touched by her tears. I couldn't bear to see her crying, but I also needed to know who she cheated on me with and why she did it. When I asked her, she only cried more, her body trembling uncontrollably. Tell me, Who's it?
It's your brother.
It felt like my world stopped for a moment. I couldn't believe my ears. How could Bob be responsible for my wife's pregnancy? It's not possible. You're joking with me.
I'm not, Joe. He's responsible for this.
She further explained that she'd run into Joe. That night we fought. They'd gone to his house together and things progressed from there. And it wasn't just that day. They were dating. My brother had impregnated my wife and was also dating her. I broke into a sob. I was heartbroken. I wanted nothing more but for all of that to be a nightmare. I wanted to wake up, but I couldn't because it was all real. I cried until my eyes and throat began to hurt. I cried until my eyes refused to form tears anymore. I'd never felt so hurt. I sent my wife out. I felt disgusted just staring at her. Once she left, I rushed over to my parents and broke down again in front of them. When they heard about what happened, they were shocked. They hadn't seen Bob since he left home and were devastated to hear what he did when I was only trying to help him. It hurt so badly because Bob and my wife weren't strangers to each other. I was even more sad to think that my wife could probably be with Bob as we spoke. After crying over it for days, I decided to divorce her. Bob showed up with her to my parents' house, and they both told us they weren't going to stop dating. In anger, my parents cussed at my wife and disowned Bob. They both didn't seem to care and left us. My wife signed the divorce papers without even thinking twice, and I was left alone with nothing but my parents and my shattered heart. I didn't hear from them until about 6 years later, after my parents had died. Both my parents had left behind a good inheritance for me, which promised wealth to my generations. I'd also found a new lady I was talking to. She comforted me in every way possible and guided me whenever I needed guidance. One day, we were both going out when I suddenly saw Bob and my ex-wife standing outside my gate. I stopped my car and stepped out. They immediately rushed to me and went on their knees. "Help us, Joe. Please, forgive us and help." Apparently, both Bob and my ex-wife had been diagnosed with cancer. Bob lost his job a month ago, while my ex-wife had stopped hers 6 months before, after the doctor warned her against doing anything stressful. They were both living from hand to mouth and couldn't afford their surgery. They were begging for my help. I burst into laughter. After what you both did to me, I'm very surprised to see you in this condition.
Joe, please. We're going to die if you don't help us, please. Our son was born paralyzed. No one is going to help him if we don't. Please, Joe.
Karma had truly dealt with them. I smiled happily. I have no help to render to you both. Not now, not ever. You both didn't care about my feelings when you hurt me, so I don't care about your paralyzed child when you die. I'll make sure to attend your funerals, though, dressed in red. Oh, that's if anyone would be kind enough to give you both proper burials. I walked back to my car, ignoring their cries and pleas. They deserved it, and more. Not in a million years would I help them. Never. 6 months later, I heard rumors that Joe had died and was buried, while his wife was in critical condition at the hospital. As for their paralyzed child, he was given up for adoption since their illness had become so serious. As for me, well, I later got married to Jennifer, and she is pregnant. I'm so happy. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.
I told them he threatened me with being a cop and they decided to go home with me. James lived 2 buildings after mine, and the man only went to work on the weekend. When the cops got to his door and made him come out, he was visibly scared.
Hey, which precinct are you with? The 5th. 5th was shut down last year. Who's your captain? Smith. There's no Captain Smith in this district. Badge number? 7,842. 7,842 belongs to Officer Harris. You sure that's yours? Yeah, I think so. Think so? Turn around. You're not a cop. Let's sort this out at the station.
Well, it turned out that he wasn't a cop and only said that to scare me. Sometimes he will wear cop uniform, so I actually thought he was a cop. I got a fake police officer arrested after months of swallowing his dirty attitudes. My name's Amoy, and I'm black, originally from Jamaica. I moved to the USA into a neighborhood with a lot of white Americans, and was not accepted by the majority of them. I used to work at a traveling agency in Jamaica, and my neighbors were all good to me. I got a promotion and got transferred to the States, and my neighbors were completely different from the ones in Jamaica. The first day I arrived, I caught some people eyeing me with disgusting gazes. It was quite surprising because I did nothing to offend them, but I ignored everything and focused on arranging my new home. The next day, I needed to look around to find nearby hospitals, eateries, and also clubs, as I loved to club every weekend. Unfortunately, even the taxi drivers there didn't like me. I flagged down about 3, and when they stopped and saw me, they would simply drive away. Eventually, one stopped and even smiled at me before I got in. I did find the buildings I was looking for, and luckily, they weren't so far from where I lived. When I returned home, I was so tired, so I fell asleep. But I was awoken by loud bangings on my door. I forcefully woke up and went to the door. There, an angry-looking man was staring at me. I asked what he wanted, and shockingly, he threw a bucket of snow into my house.
This is to warn you to never cross paths with me, else I'll harm you in ways you never imagined.
I was confused. I'd never even met him. I was surprised as to how he found my house and felt he was right to attack me like that. Before I could speak, he turned and left. I stood at the door for what seemed like minutes before I finally went in and cleaned the snow from my hallway. I resumed work 2 days later and was wise enough to avoid everyone in my neighborhood. I didn't say hi to any, neither did I even make eye contact with them. I needed to avoid troubles as best as I could. Unfortunately for me, I fell into one a week later. It was a Saturday and I didn't have work. With no one to talk to, I left home and went to a nearby park. When I got there, I saw that there were a lot of people there. I nearly left because I wanted some peace and quiet, but I decided to stay. I found a bench beneath a broad tree and went to sit there, facing the lake in front of it. Just when I was finally enjoying nature, I heard a familiar voice behind me.
I warned you to never cross paths with me, you idiot.
When I turned, I saw James, the man who threw snow into my house. I wondered what he wanted from me this time. What do you mean? I was sitting alone.
That's my seat. You're watching me, aren't you? What? Did you come here to spy on rich people so you can attack them with your black boyfriend?
Where did that even come from? I was so confused. I tried to explain to him that I met the bench empty, but he slapped me instead. The shock and force of the slap made me fall on my butt. Do you know what you just did?
Of course I do. If you dare try to get on my nerves again, you'll receive more than a slap, you silly thing.
He was so rude. I stood up, dusted my clothes, and threatened to report him to the cops.
Oh great, I work as a cop, and I'm gonna make sure you're put behind bars. I dare you to report this.
That scared me. If he was a cop in such racist place, then I would have no chance. There was no way his colleagues would support me and throw him under the bus. I felt so miserable and angry as I walked back home. I went straight to bed to avoid overthinking. The next day after work, I saw that someone had poured dirt all over my front porch. Tears formed in my eyes as I stared at it. I was so tired from the long day I had. I hadn't imagined that I would have to clean the place again. Of course, I had no idea who did. My neighbors hated me. Any of them could have done it. I dropped my bag on the floor and began clearing the place. It took me about 20 minutes before I finally finished. I crashed on the couch immediately and fell asleep. The next morning, when I got out of the house to go to work, I nearly fell into a pile of dirt in front of my door. Again. This time, I saw James standing a few steps away.
Come on, report to the cops. I'd like to see you in jail, impersonator.
I wondered who I was impersonating to be called the name. I was tempted to go to the station, but again, I remembered that he was a cop and I couldn't win against a cop. I wasn't having any fun at all with how life was going. James refused to get off my back. He was always doing something to make me feel angry. I noticed that all my other neighbors had stopped looking at me with those disgusting eyes. Instead, they ignored me. I was grateful for that and wished James would do the same, but he was adamant on making my life a living hell. One day, on my way home from work, I came across 2 elderly ladies carrying heavy bags. I was tempted to help them with it, but I was also scared of getting shooed away. Unable to watch them struggle with the bags any longer, I went forward and asked to help them. They looked surprised, but allowed me. Even though I was tired, I carried the bags to their home and they were so thankful to me. Another day, I helped a little injured girl by carrying her home, and her parents had the same look of surprise before they thanked me. I helped other neighbors randomly whenever they seemed to need help. Luckily, they never refused and always thanked me afterward. James didn't stop harassing. Once, he even threw an egg at me right after I stepped out of my house to head to work. I was forced to go back in and change my clothes. I would report him to my neighbors, but even though I'd helped them a lot of times, I wasn't close enough to them to initiate any conversation. I felt so alone and frustrated by James's actions. One day, after he poured paint on me for shutting my door too loudly, I decided that I'd had enough. The next morning, I headed straight to the station to report James. Surprisingly, the cops weren't racists as I'd expected. When I told them about all of his behaviors, they were both shocked and irritated. I told them he threatened me with being a cop and they decided to go home with me. James lived 2 buildings after mine, and the man only went to work on the weekend. When the cops got to his door and made him come out, he was visibly scared.
Hey, which precinct are you with? The 5th. 5th was shut down last year. Who's your captain? Smith. There's no Captain Smith in this district. Badge number? 7,842. 7,842 belongs to Officer Harris. You sure that's yours? Yeah, I think so. Think so? Turn around. You're not a cop. Let's sort this out at the station.
Well, it turned out that he wasn't a cop and only said that to scare me. Sometimes he will wear cop uniform, so I actually thought he was a cop. I couldn't believe that he made me believe such a lie for 2 months. He was immediately arrested. At the station, the cops were angry at him for being racist and also lying about who he was. He was kept in the cell until I was ready to press charges. Before he was taken in, he cried and apologized to me. That was giving me second thoughts about pressing charges. I decided to let him be in the custody of the cops before I could finalize what to do to him. Shockingly, 2 days later, I got a call from the station. James had escaped. I was so scared. How was it possible for him to escape the custody of the cops? I was so scared because I suspected him coming after me. Well, my suspicions were true because I came home from the station to see that someone had broken into my house. Before leaving, I'd left a few dollar bills on my table and I returned to see it gone. I knew James broke into my house and stole them. I contacted the police to tell them about it, and they promised to find James and arrest him. I lived in fear. At night, I would hear knocks on my windows and door, but if I went to check, I would find no one there. Other times, I would see a poster of a clown there. I could barely sleep. I was restless and uncomfortable. One day, while doing my laundry, I heard my front door open and the sound of footsteps. I began trembling as I walked out of the bathroom. When I reached the living room, I didn't find anyone. Before I could turn, someone's hand came around my neck and put me in a headlock. I tried to scream, but the grip was too strong.
Didn't I warn you to not mess with me? How dare you report me to the cops?
He let go of me and manhandled me to face him, then slapped me harshly, causing me to yelp and fall to the floor. I screamed for help, but another slap shut me up. James began to hit me. He threw punches and slaps everywhere, laughing as he did. He then started throwing petrol to set my house on fire with me in it. Luckily for me, 3 of my neighbors rushed into my house and pulled James away. Apparently, they'd heard my scream and rushed over. They gave James a few punches to weaken him before they tied him and called the cops who came and took him away. I followed them alongside my neighbors. On the way, they kept asking if I was okay. I felt so grateful to them because I hadn't expected anyone to help me. James ended up going to jail because he was found guilty after I wasted no time in pressing charges. Most of my neighbors came to me to apologize on his behalf, and also the way they treated me when I first moved in. Of course, I forgave them. The others would give me reassuring stares if we crossed paths or ask if I was doing good. It felt so great to see that my neighbors didn't have any more hatred for me. Some cab drivers were still racists, as well as some people in the club, but I didn't mind. I just avoided them. After a month in jail, James tried to escape again, but he was caught and shot at by the cops. After his wound was treated, he was moved to another prison where dangerous criminals were. They found out about James's attempt to escape prison, just to assault a black woman and burn her house, which made them furious. This led to him being severely beaten. He ended up with a fractured nose, broken legs and ribs, and a deep wound in his left eye. Again, he was taken to the hospital where the doctor accidentally sent a nurse who was still learning to treat James. The nurse injected him wrongly, and he got injured in the butt, which caused him to lie on his chest for weeks. Eventually, he returned to jail, but with a nearly blind eye and a permanent ankle injury that caused him to limp. I requested to be sent back to Jamaica, and the company agreed. I left the city 2 months later, and I'm at peace here. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I came across my sister's page and saw that she was on a wheelchair. She was also in tears. According to her story, she'd gotten into an accident which almost claimed her life. She'd luckily survived, but would be needing surgery to help her walk again. She'd set up a GoFundMe, requesting help from people. I cried so much when I saw the video. My parents hadn't told me anything. I felt so abandoned and resolved to confront them when they returned home. You can imagine my shock when they walked into the house that night with my sister, who was looking completely fine. How are you walking well? In your video, you said you needed surgery to walk. What's going on?
Oh, shut up. If you dare say a word about this to anyone, I'll kill you myself.
I'm doing this to make Mom and Dad proud. I'm making them money. More than you'll ever make in your entire life.
If this information gets out of this house, I won't let your mother kill you. I'll do it myself.
I was scared, betrayed, shocked. Hey there. I'm Annie, 28 years old, and I've been living on my own since I turned 21. It was a decision I made after a particularly tough year following my 20th birthday, and looking back, I've never regretted it. From the very beginning, it was evident that I had a knack for academics. Teachers favored me for my diligence and quick understanding of lessons. I held on to my position as the top student with pride, but little did I know that it would soon become a source of isolation and pain. My elder sister, Stacy, was 2 years older but only 1 class ahead of me. When I got into senior high school, things took a sharp turn for the worse. My academic success made me a target for jealousy and resentment among my peers and sister as well. Because I often topped the class, my sister hated me for no reason. My peers shunned me, spoke ill of me behind my back, and refused to engage with me in any meaningful way. I vividly remember being the only student sitting alone in class, surrounded by an invisible wall of hostility and exclusion. You might wonder if my sister, being my closest companion at school, offered any support. Sadly, it was quite the opposite. My sister was stunningly beautiful, a fact that she never let me forget. Her looks drew attention and admiration effortlessly, making her the darling of our peers. From our early years in junior secondary school, she distanced herself from me. At first, I struggled with the rejection, hoping that family ties would prevail over popularity contests. Yet, as time passed, I grew accustomed to her indifference and the hurt it caused. By the time I entered high school, her behavior towards me had turned openly hostile. She joined in the taunts and mockery that I endured from others, using her influence to amplify the isolation I felt. Her betrayal cut me so deeply, leaving me grappling with a sense of abandonment and betrayal from someone I had once trusted implicitly. When we were little, my sister and I were best friends. She always liked it when we played together and when our parents bought us matching clothes. She'd refuse to go anywhere if I wasn't going. My grandparents used to say we were inseparable siblings. You can understand my pain after her sudden change toward me. You would think she was different at home, but she was just the same. She would scream at me at the slightest provocation. She would even hit me for the littlest mistake and tell me how bad and unfortunate I was. Once, while my parents were away, I tried cooking something for us. I wanted to make her feel good, and maybe like me. Knowing she was a foodie, I opted to use food. Unfortunately for me, I wasn't a great cook. I tried, but the only good thing about the meal was the love and care I'd put into it. I was going to trash the food because I knew it wasn't good. But before I could do that, my sister caught me. In tears, I apologized to her and explained what I attempted to do. Against my wish, she tasted the food and smiled. She kept the food to show to my parents once they were home. I was so scared because we both knew my parents were against food wastage. I begged her in tears, but she refused to listen. She swore to make me pay for wasting food. When my parents returned home and heard about it, they were livid. I explained what my intentions were, but it was disregarded. My parents hit me. That was the first of the many times they hit me after believing my sister over me. With no one on my side, both at school and at home, I threw myself into my studies as a refuge, seeking solace in the pursuit of knowledge where judgment was based on merit, not popularity. Teachers continued to commend my efforts, but their praise offered little comfort in the face of relentless hatred from my peers. Outside of school, I found peace in my loneliness. Books became my constant companions. Finally, we graduated from high school. My parents had tried to get us matching outfits for graduation, but Stacy refused. According to her, we weren't kids, and her friends would mock her for that. I was willing to match with her. However, my opinion wasn't demanded. We ended up getting different outfits, and of course, my sister got the prettier one while I got a casual one. Graduation was over, and we got into college. Again, my sister's beauty got her more popularity. There weren't bullies in college. They liked me. They liked how brilliant I was and tried to associate with me. I guess seeing that angered my sister. She hated that I was getting attention, nearly as much as her. I suppose that was the reason she began running a YouTube channel. At first, her videos were fashion-oriented. She managed to gather quite a lot of subscribers as a result of her beauty and great fashion sense. She expanded to other social media platforms where she also gained recognition.
Watch out. I'm going to get so rich and no one will be interested in your stupid brain anymore.
She often boasted like that. Honestly, I wasn't interested in the popularity. All I wanted was to peacefully graduate college and get a job better than the part-time one I was doing. With the money she gained from social media after a year, my sister moved out of the house at age 22. She'd truly gotten rich. She got my parents a car and even helped renovate the house, excluding my room.
You could use your brain to get yourself money and make your room look better.
I felt bad, but I didn't dwell on it for long. I had done nothing to offend her, but I refused to hold grudges against her. I was never allowed to visit her home. My parents also refused to disclose her address.
You know your sister doesn't like you. I think it's better you don't bug her.
Your mom is right. Personally, we think it's better this way. We don't want you causing trouble for her.
I felt disappointed in my parents for supporting her mistreatment toward me, but I didn't complain. I stopped asking about her and simply let things go their own way. Shockingly, 4 months later, I came across my sister's page and saw that she was on a wheelchair. She was also in tears. According to her story, she'd gotten into an accident which almost claimed her life. She'd luckily survived, but would be needing surgery to help her walk again. She'd set up a GoFundMe, requesting help from people. I cried so much when I saw the video. My parents hadn't told me anything. I felt so abandoned and resolved to confront them when they returned home. You can imagine my shock when they walked into the house that night with my sister, who was looking completely fine. How are you walking well? In your video, you said you needed surgery to walk. What's going on?
Oh, shut up. If you dare say a word about this to anyone, I'll kill you myself.
I'm doing this to make mom and dad proud. I'm making them money. More than you'll ever make in your entire life.
If this information gets out of this house, I won't let your mother kill you. I'll do it myself.
I was scared, betrayed, shocked. I felt like a stranger to my own family. I promised not to say anything. However, just 3 days later, my sister released a video. She was crying even more. In the video, she told everyone how she'd gotten into another accident.
I caught my sister in bed with my boyfriend. I felt so hurt and betrayed. While I was driving away in tears, that's when the accident happened.
If I wasn't her sister, I would have believed. She sounded so real. Tears rolled down my eyes as I read the comments. Everyone was talking down on me. I was being called a hater, homewrecker, bad sister, among other vile names. I cried so much that I nearly passed out. The next day, calls began to come in from those at school who recognized her. It was so embarrassing and hurtful to hear everyone bashing me for my sister's lies. I couldn't even go to college anymore, out of fear. Everyone, both strangers and acquaintances, turned against me. That earned Stacy even more pity. She got more money from the public. I felt so bad because even my parents were in support of her actions. No one considered my feelings. Blogs soon began sharing the video. They tagged me different bad names and painted me so evil. Seeing all of that turned my feelings to pure rage. I was determined to get back at her. Firstly, with the money I'd been saving, I went to rent a comfortable apartment far from them without their idea. My aim was to get back at my sister. After another week, I was able to locate her house. I waited for the right time to strike. Luckily, it came after another week. That day, I overheard my parents talking about having dinner with my sister. Once she arrived, I left the house and rushed to hers. I'd figured out where she kept her spare key, so I took it and went in. I hid behind her couch and waited. She didn't return until 2 hours later. Once I heard her car drive in, I started a live video. Hi everyone. I'm Annie, Stacy's younger sister. I'm here to prove to you all that she's nothing but a faker and a liar. She didn't get into any accident. I'm at her house now, and I'm going to prove it to you all. More people tuned in. Soon, Stacy walked into the house and turned on the lights. I immediately came out of my hiding place and directed the camera to her. She froze in shock. Can you all see? She's hale and hearty. She's lying against me because she hates me. She's faking her condition to extort money from you all. Our parents are also in on it. It's their plan to make you all pity her and take your money. My sister screamed and tried to fight me to take the phone from me, but I refused to back off. I pushed her and dashed out of the house. After locking her in, I called the police. They swiftly came and she was arrested. The news immediately went viral. Everyone on the internet was supporting her arrest. They requested my bank account details to aid with sending her to jail, and I released it. With the money, I pressed charges against Stacy. She was charged with fraud, defamation of character, money extortion, and deceiving the public. That got her 15 years in jail. Some of those on the internet were present on the day of her trial. The money she got from them was going to be given back to the public. However, they refused and insisted that the money be given to me instead. I got so emotional and burst into tears. They all felt like they owed me after all the insults and curses they hurled at me, and that was the only way they could get my forgiveness. Meanwhile, the neighbors had heard about it and stormed my parents' house. They burnt down the house, and my parents had been dragged all the way to the police station after getting mercilessly beaten. They both got 10 years jail term each for being accomplices to their daughter's deceit. As the cops dragged them to the bus, people threw eggs, water, and curses on them. People took videos of them, which went viral too. My classmates from college called to apologize for what they said. With the money I got, I was able to finish college, attend a cooking academy, and establish my own restaurant. It's been 7 years, and I've managed to establish 3 more restaurants, all of which are doing incredibly well. I haven't heard about my family, and I haven't cared to check. I feel happier not knowing about them, and it will remain that way. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. After we eat, Mom makes sure to tell the staff that it's Emily's birthday, and they bring out a big chocolate cake that Mom custom orders beforehand, with Emily's face plastered in the frosting. I hate chocolate, and every year they get it. We're twins. Why does it only ever have Emily's face on the cake? It's my birthday too.
When you get a prettier face, you can be on the cake too.
Even though she's my twin sister, my family always thought Emily was better than me. For whatever reason, my family was really shallow and placed a lot of value on looks. Growing up, Emily never had any of the problems that I did. She was always fit, never had any acne, and had no problem making friends wherever she went. She wasn't just perfect with her looks. She was always top of her class and the top player in any sport. She was everything that I wasn't, and they always reminded me of it.
It boggles my mind how you and Emily are identical sisters, but no one would ever tell that from looking at the two of you.
Good thing one of you got your mother's good looks and my brain. You should study more to be more like her.
We're identical twins. How can you say we don't look alike?
Your nose is definitely bigger.
This went on for years, and despite knowing that she was the favorite, I would still try to impress my parents, to make them acknowledge my existence. I couldn't compete with all the beauty pageants that Emily won or the grades that she brought home to show them, but I still tried anyway. Around age 14, I started spending more time at after-school activities, so I wouldn't have to be around my family so much. I enrolled myself in as many activities as I could. I was happy with how busy I became and didn't have time to think about my parents and Emily. But it quickly backfired on me. In my pursuit of finding who I was outside of my family, I had forgotten how popular Emily was at school. In all of the activities, when I would walk in the room, everyone's eyes would light up, thinking I was her.
Emily, I thought you said you couldn't make the drama audition because of the volleyball tournament.
Did you get enough sleep last night? You look off. Your nose is a little swollen, too. Did you bump your nose or something?
I'm not Emily. I'm her twin.
Oh, thank goodness. I was really worried there for a second. I thought something horrible had happened to her to make her look like that.
Most days after school, I would lock myself in my room, trying to forget that I was a twin. I would lay awake thinking about what my life would have been like had I been born 2 minutes later and her 2 minutes earlier. Would she live the life I was having now? Or was she truly better than me like everyone else said she was? Every summer, my parents would take a trip to their lakeside house, and they would take Emily with them. They would always leave me at the house, saying that I needed to stay to take care of our family dog. When they first started doing this, I would get upset at their stupid excuse to leave me behind and forget that they had an ugly daughter. As I got older, I started to appreciate the time alone that I would get away from them. I would crank music up loud and let it echo throughout the house, dancing as hard as I could. Only Angus could see me anyways. He would lay in his dog bed and watch me as I sang and danced in joy. Then it occurred to me, is this what my life be like without Emily in it? Without her always looming over with how much better she was, and without my parents constantly telling me? My life changed with that thought as a new goal formed within me. I had to get away from them, whatever the cost. I was fairly lucky for most of high school to not have her in most of my classes, but my luck ran out junior year. We had biology together. Everyone would flock to her when it came time to do class projects, and I was often stuck with someone who mistook me for her. There was a particularly challenging partner project that our teacher, Ms. Rodnick, assigned in the middle of the year. By this point, everyone knew who the smart students were, and who were the ones you wanted to avoid if you wanted a good grade. Me and the girl who sat next to me were the students to avoid.
Why doesn't anyone ever want to partner with you? Me, I can understand, but you get good grades.
That's the first time I've ever heard someone call a D a good grade.
Still better than what I've been getting. Do you want to partner up for the project? We've been sitting next to each other all year, and I don't think I even know your name. I just know it's not Emily.
Tanya.
Hannah. For the record, I don't get what the big deal is about your sister. Frankly, I think anyone could look however they wanted if they learned how to do makeup.
Makeup, you say? From that point on, Hannah and I were inseparable. She was the first person who thought I was smart. The frosting on the cake? She didn't like Emily. We would do everything together. The more I got to know her, the more we found in common with one another. She had moved from another state because she was so badly bullied at her old school. She told me that she saw a lot of herself in me when I explained about Emily and my parents. For the first time in my life, I had found someone who seemed to actually care about me. She was like the stereotypical sister that I would see in the movies. We went shopping and talked about boys. I told her that I could never really think about anyone like that because I was so unattractive. At this, she became angry. "No one is ugly, least of all you," she said as she shook me. "You're sleeping over tonight, and we're binge-watching makeup tutorials until you can figure out how to get that thought out of your head." We did this for weeks, practicing makeup on each other, making each other look like all these YouTube makeup influencers. It was during these sleepovers that I first experienced the sensation of looking in the mirror and feeling beautiful. I was so relieved and happy that I cried while Hannah patted my back lovingly. It was then that I became passionate about making other people feel the same way, making others feel beautiful with makeup. I began to practice on myself at home more and more regularly. As I was walking out the door one day to go to school, my mom was particularly nice to me.
Why are you so quiet this morning, dear? You always say goodbye to me before you leave.
I never say goodbye to you.
Tanya, I thought you were Emily. Get out of here. You're late.
It was a bittersweet moment then. I had gotten good enough at makeup for my mom to confuse me with Emily, but still. Senior year, Hannah did something for me that I will never forget. My birthday was coming up quickly, and Hannah wanted to do something to celebrate. I told her I wanted to ignore it. My birthday is usually the day that I hate the most. Every year, they take both of us to a fancy restaurant. It's always humiliating. Emily always get an amazingly beautiful birthday dress for the occasion, and I'm stuck wearing the dress that she got last year that she doesn't want anymore. Even though we're twins, our bodies aren't quite the same. While the dresses look amazing on her, they fit me awkwardly, with loose bunches of fabric everywhere. To make matters worse, Emily would always soak her old dress in vinegar before giving it to me. I could never get rid of the smell no matter how many times I washed it. It's the only dress I could possibly wear to the birthday dinner, and I make other restaurant goers gag as I walk by. The three of them think it's hilarious and laugh as we walk to the table. After we eat, Mom makes sure to tell the staff that it's Emily's birthday, and they bring out a big chocolate cake that Mom custom orders beforehand, with Emily's face plastered in the frosting. I hate chocolate, and every year they get it. We're twins. Why does it only ever have Emily's face on the cake? It's my birthday too.
When you get a prettier face, you can be on the cake too.
I told Hannah about why I hated my birthdays, and she became furious.
You know what? You're getting a new birthday. The day before your birthday is all about you. You were born first, so you should celebrate first anyways. Keep your day open, okay?
I was skeptical, but she had already proven that I could trust her, so I agreed. She was really adamant about it. The weeks that led up to my birthday, I grew more and more curious. I would ask Hannah for more details, but she would just smile at me. The day before my birthday finally came, and I had no idea what to expect. I kept checking my phone for text messages from Hannah, but there was nothing. I heard Emily squealing downstairs all of a sudden. "Oh my gosh, you guys got me a limo this year?" I looked out the window and a long black limo laid in our street. Before my parents could respond, Emily ran out to the limo and tried to open the door. It was locked. Hannah popped her head up from inside and yelled to me, "Get your beautiful butt in here, Tanya." Emily stood with her jaw dropped. As I ran down the stairs, my parents tried to stop me. "Where are you going? Where did you get the money to rent a limo?" I ignored them as I rushed through the door. Outside, Emily was motionless as Hannah stepped outside of the limo, brandishing the most beautiful dress I had ever seen. "Is this for me?"
Of course. I had my dad custom fit it to fit you perfectly. No vinegar smell either.
"Where did you get this limo?"
Oh, my brother owns his own limo company, and he let me borrow this one to take you to your surprise.
We got into the limo together and drove away from my house. My parents stood on the porch watching me drive away. Emily stood in the parking lot, her mouth still ajar with her eyes still wide in disbelief. "So what's the surprise?"
Remember how you did my mom's friend's makeup? Her name is Justina Caldone. I didn't tell you because I thought you would be nervous, but she's actually a successful fashion designer who was looking for a makeup artist for her latest show. It was like a job interview, really. She was really impressed. We're going to the show now. You're doing the model's makeup.
What? Really? That was one of the most magical nights of my life. I had never seen so many people in such extravagant clothing before. The dress that Hannah got me fit wonderfully. As I moved to each model, I felt almost as if I was gliding across the floor. Each one was super impressed with their makeup and told me how skilled I was and how beautiful I looked. After the show ended, Hannah presented me with a giant vanilla cake with my face on it. I never cried so much in one night before. It was a happy cry. While the two of us were eating the cake, Justina asked if I would become her full-time makeup artist. I readily agreed. Immediately after graduation, I moved out of my parents' house. For the next 5 years, I traveled with her abroad, working alongside her. My face was always on the cover of some magazine talking about what an up-and-comer I was. Eventually, I got enough traction to start my own makeup company. It's doing great. I'd never in my wildest dreams have thought I'd be where I am today. I don't think my parents or Emily thought I ever would either. 7 years after Hannah gave me that new birthday, I received a call.
Hello. Is this Tanya? It's your mother. Listen, I know we didn't always treat you the best growing up, but look at where you are now. We're in a bit of trouble now and could use some help.
Mom explained that shortly after I moved out, Emily became obsessed with her image. she became addicted to plastic surgery and would have mom and dad pay for the procedures. They quickly cut her off and refused to pay, so she would steal the money from them. Mom and dad are penniless now, and they're at risk of losing their house. Emily ran away after a botched nose job surgery, and they have no idea where she is.
Can you help us? Everywhere I look, I see how successful you are. I know we weren't the kindest to you growing up, but I think if you look in your heart, you'll see that we are the reason you've gotten to be where you are. You owe us. I'm your mother. This is the least you could do.
I am where I am because I worked my butt off to get away from you. I achieved that. Me. Good luck with the house, Linda. I hung up before she could respond, and I never heard from her again. A few weeks later, I heard my parents couldn't afford to pay their mortgage. They were kicked out of the house and are now living on the streets. They both work in a warehouse lifting boxes every day and are being bullied by the young, agile workers because they are slow and old. As for Emily, I saw on the news that she committed suicide after she was laughed at for her appearance and bullied. I have a new life now without them, a better one, and that's the best revenge I can get. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and leave a comment down below saying I subscribed, and we will try our best to reply to your comment.